Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Be My Guest, episode 7. We are moving along, getting real close to that double-digit mark already, and it's really been a great adventure through these last several weeks of being able to talk to some amazing people, filming some amazing episodes, and really connecting with some amazing people. So thank you, first and foremost, for all of you being my guest. We have a great show for you today. Mr. Ken Patel is going to be joining us. He has a story full of roller coaster full of emotions in 2020, where he got a great new job to start the year. COVID hits. He unfortunately loses some family members due to COVID in pretty rapid succession. Then unfortunately loses his position, all while moving to a new location for this position. So we're going to talk to Ken about his story. But first and foremost, as always, I want to say if you are listening to this, if you're enjoying this, please subscribe. Leave us some comments, give us some feedback. We are all over the podcast channels, iTunes, Spotify, Google. We're over there if you're listening to the audio. If you're catching this on video, check out my YouTube page. I'm going to start putting up shortly, getting that kind of fixed up. But you can find that under David Mignano. Of course, when you click on these videos, it should bring you right there. And subscribe to that. You get all the new videos that they come out every Tuesday. Of course, I'm still going to be posting them on LinkedIn. More importantly, though, I want you to be my guest. So if you want to come on and share your story, please reach out to me via LinkedIn, via YouTube message, via wherever else you can reach me, Facebook, because I want to talk to you about your story. So the easiest way is linkedin.com/in/DMIGNANO. Of course, if you're seeing this on LinkedIn, you probably know how to find me because my name's right above this video. But if you're hearing the audio version, that's the address to reach out to me. And I want to have you on because the more stories that we can tell, the more people can relate, the more people can feel part of a community. Because I'm telling you, I've gotten some amazing feedback, great messages, great texts, just people that are really connecting with what we're talking about because everyone's going through a lot of stuff. Even people outside of hospitality are actually seeing this and connecting. So it's really been a great start. And I really want to keep developing that so we can all kind of come together and help us through this, help each other through these challenging times. But without further ado, let me bring on Mr. Ken Patel, great friend of the show, great guest today, going to be talking about a lot of stuff. And Ken, how are you today?
Yes, sir. Hey, great, David. I'm doing very well. Actually.
Good.
So
It's great to have you on and great to hear that. Again, we're going to talk about your story and, how you're able to keep such a positive mindset regarding that. But
right.
First things first, why don't we just jump right into it?
Of course.
Give me kind of a rundown of who you are, your experience, how you got into hotels, and what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I've been in the hospitality industry now going on 22 years. I grew up in New Jersey, went from high school to Emirates Academy in Dubai. That's where I got my MBA in hospitality management. And, was working in the New York City market after I got back, and I've been in hospitality ever since. Moved out to the Atlanta area. I'm in Alpharetta for the last 2 years, I would say. Um, and just got a feel of the warmer weather after being in the New York City area for 30 some years. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to just say about the weather. Yeah, it's getting chilly up here, so I must be enjoying it down
Yeah,
there in the
I
Georgia
definitely
area.
miss it. I definitely miss it. I was vice president up there for 8 years, and miss everybody up there. It's very different down here. Obviously, personalities change, but miss the lifestyle most definitely. That's number one. The lifestyle up there is great. So down here, it's very low key. Uh, still adjusting to it. Um, the adjustment's still quite not there, but the hospitality industry is very different too. You don't get to see the bigger ADRs down here that you saw up there, and the fast life that I love the most. But the industry itself, I would probably say that it's changed, as you know. The last 8 months, 9 months, whatever it is, it's changed dramatically. So, we're shifting gears, seeing what 2021 is gonna bring to us. But been doing this for such a long time to see you're never gonna replicate the same year as we know. It's just never gonna replicate it. So um, just love doing it, and I know I'm probably gonna be doing it to my grave.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a lot of change, and obviously everyone
Yeah.
knows there's been a tremendous amount of change in the industry as a whole. But even
Yes.
prior to COVID, you made a big change, right? You were just talking about
Right.
you were in the New York City market for 30 years. You
Yeah.
take a new role at a regional executive level of operations down in, based in the Atlanta area. So prior to COVID, and you
Hmm.
took that job in January, so it wasn't too far
Right.
off.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
goes into kind of making that type of change where you say, you know what, I'm going to completely uproot everything I know and
Hmm.
go to a place that I've never experienced on a long-term basis before?
Yeah. I would say sometimes you have to make decisions, right, based on not only evolving around money. It's got to be more. You got to make a sound decision and not a financial decision. Where it's like, okay, my wife wanted to be closer to her family, so I said, you know what, I'm going to give up, the role I had, where I was an executive, and hunker it down a little bit and get into more of a regional role where and that's kind of the steps I took is I kind of gave up what I reached to, the levels that I reached to, just to have more of a family oriented atmosphere. Um, and I was fine by that because my daughter at that time was, I think, about 2.5. So I was like, you know what, getting towards on being with her more and spending more time with my wife and her being more happy because she's from the Atlanta area. So she gets to go back home. She obviously hated the snow, hated it. She was like, she didn't understand why being trapped in the house for like 8 months out of the year and only get to go outside for 4 months. I'm like, this is what you call all seasons,
Yep.
but being taken on that role and coming down here, you have to make adjustments. If anyone was to move from the Northeast to the Southeast, it's a big adjustment change. Um, Personalities are very different. To get someone to do what they're capable of doing is, I would say, it can be a challenge. It can be definitely a big challenge. The aggressiveness definitely lacks a lot more down here. Um, and I had to make adjustments, as to coming from the executive side, being a vice president for almost 8 years in the New York City market, and coming down here, taking a lesser role, and kind of have the same personality and demeanor, obviously wouldn't work down here. So you have to make adjustments. And I speak to my wife about it because she's in the industry as well. Um, but I made that decision. I'm not going to say I regret it, but you know, uh, I don't think I'll ever say I'll regret the decision I made. But things happen for a reason, right?
Right.
They obviously happen for a reason. So I'm happy and I live with my decision.
Which is a great way to look at it, right? Because
Right.
you can't change it either way. So
Yeah.
the decision was made, and it was obviously, I'm sure, a very tough one. And
Yes.
let me just ask you again, this is still talking pre COVID.
Mhm.
Did you find yourself having, again, I want to say regrets, but what's the best way to put this? Maybe, when you first moved down there, say mental anguish about the decision that you made, about the change in lifestyle. I know, for example, my wife is someone who always says she would have a difficult time leaving this area because it's all she knows, and she's not really great with change.
Yeah.
Were there, once again, I won't say negative emotions, but just anxieties as you got down there and started to live that life about where you now were?
Yeah, I would say. Um, Especially, I mean, when you know New York City, when you work in New York City, when you breathe New York City, and you've been there since elementary school, you know that you get the best food card on 53rd and 6th across the Hilton Hotel. Um, you know, things like that, and you come into a new territory and you're trying to figure it out, and you're like, why is this labor market like this down here? You know, I mean, never had an issue with the labor market before, and you know, things of that nature. You're like, oh man, why did I do this? And why I had an easy life, I had everything going the right way, but you know, and it comes down to you can't work backwards. You know, I always say that you can't work backwards. You got to always move forward, and you can never spin the wheel backwards. The Ferris wheel doesn't go backwards. The Ferris wheel goes forward. So you know, you kind of adjust yourself to the way that things are, and you know, you're not going to get the best restaurants, but yeah, let's make the best of what we can get. And you know, you have to travel 20 miles to go somewhere, or even maybe a nice restaurant, or you have to go find this place and you got to travel a little bit. So you're getting used to more travel, rather than jumping in a cab or just going here and you know this restaurant's great. I mean, when you're in that certain territory, you know that okay, Thursday nights we're gonna go to this restaurant, Friday nights we're gonna go here, Saturday night we're gonna go here, or you know we can take our daughter to this place. So now it's just like anything is when you're in a new territory, it's all about research. You know, is okay, did I make that right decision to be over here? And
Mhm.
now, if my work is in this territory, I got to travel this or travel that way. So there's just a lot of things that go into it.
Right.
But you know, I really would say one of the more important things, and when people want to make a move, is definitely do a lot of research. You know, do a lot of research as to where you're trying to make that move.
No, it makes total sense. And then, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, a lot of people in the hospitality job market are probably going to have to start relocating and find ways to get creative with their positions because where you live may not be as plentiful for positions as it once was. And I'll use, my area as an example. New York City was a hotbed for jobs, and now it's very challenging to find one. So, Ken, you uproot your family, you move down to
Oh,
Atlanta,
give
you
me
have
one
this.
second. I think
Yeah, sure.
my earpiece is getting messed up again.
All right, so I'm going to drop Ken off for a second while he gets that figured out. But I mean, Ken's really talking about some great stuff here to start. I mean, this is a guy who, towards the end of 2019, he has a robust job market. He's got a nice job in New York City, and he makes the choice to get up, leave all of that, relocate to an area that he's never lived in, which, as we all know, is very different, and try to reestablish his roots. And he takes a step back in his career, per se, all for the idea of being more, I won't say more of a family man, but just it's not about the financial aspect, right? It's not all about the money. So Ken makes that jump, and we welcome Ken back into the show. So Ken, you make that jump at the end of 19. January 2020, you start the new role with your new company as the regional director of ops. Have to imagine there's a lot of excitement there. Again, 2019 was a
Yes.
great year for hotels. Everyone's thinking 2020 is going to be looking really good as well. So give us kind of an idea of, as you kind of go into that new role, what your mindset is as you take over.
Um, I felt like where I'm gonna bring a lot to the table, with my experience and especially what I did and downgrading myself, I was gonna be able to bring a lot of qualities to the company itself where they're going to get somebody that's already been an executive, but he's going to be able to provide leadership skills to the team in a way that they would have to pay for those skills. But now they're getting it where it's going to be kind of spread it out to the hotels because obviously I wasn't in a executive leadership role. I was more in a executive operational role.
Right.
So and that's where it was gonna kind of create. It was going to create a big informational tool system for the hotels where we were able to get a lot of things and where I was able to help them get things streamlined a little better. So, and that's kind of what I felt. Obviously, didn't know COVID was coming
Right.
45 days after I started, but so everything kind of happened in a way where it just kind of took a huge detour to the plan that I signed up on. Because
So
of
let's talk about that for a second. So
yeah,
again, you have this whole plan, you uproot everything to follow this plan, and then COVID throws a wicked curveball at you.
yeah,
So as March is coming through and things are starting to fall apart,
hmm
what's your mindset now, both for your job as in you're trying to save things, but also for your mindset of wow, I just moved down here and all this is happening. What are you thinking?
I'm kind of going through mixed emotions at that point. I'm like, okay, um, how did this just happen? Like, how did I go from a great situation to now there's question marks everywhere? um, Especially when you look at the data and you're like, the worst industry that got affected was the hospitality industry, with 70% job loss. I mean, you're talking over 15, 20 million people unemployed. Um, Now you're doing things in your position that you did 14 years ago, and maybe 12 years ago.
Mhm.
So, um, and it's not like, oh, yeah, you know what? I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm too good for this. No, I mean I never had that mentality to begin with,
Right.
but there are certain things that can you tell this person to do this right now? Can you tell them? And looking at all the avenues, is like okay, there's COVID going on. Is how do we look at the safety measures? What are the safety measures to ask somebody to do this? You know, is it even feasible for them to do it? But and kind of I would say just as it all started out, and I'm just going into this position like only 45 days in, and we're seeing cases build up, and I mean we have to make sure every week things are changing. Is how do we? It's not a call anymore. And it's not about okay, how can we make the hotel better? It's how do we make the hotel safe every
Right.
week? So it's more of we're doing a lot of implementations. So I mean, it's
So that challenge, obviously, again, you're taking on new roles. You have obviously safety and cleanliness is was always extremely important and was a top priority, but it's taken a new level in the sense of we have to look at things in a whole different way, ways that we've never looked at it before. And
mhm,
you have all these mixed emotions going on in your head, but you're still also in a leadership position. You still have team members looking up to you.
right.
So how do we talked to General Manager Paul a couple episodes ago about a similar topic. How are
Mhm.
you able to separate what's going on in your personal life and in your professional life, but still be able to provide an optimistic outlook to the people on property that are looking up to you for guidance?
Um, I would say it's giving them that motivation, right? The motivational skills, as in, okay, I'm gonna help you do it because in the aspect, I always felt that employees in the times that we were in they didn't have all the tools and they didn't have all the resources that they need. As you know, we would be having staff shortages, so we all have to pitch in. As long as they see that somebody above them is able to help them out and do the items. I mean, I couldn't even tell you, and I mean, to give you an example, I think it was almost 6 weeks. We didn't have one single housekeeper. I mean, I was doing housekeeping, and that's, I mean, the last time I did housekeeping, I couldn't even tell you. I mean,
Right.
it was that long ago. But I mean, I had the engineering department, I had the houseman, I had the laundry lady, my front desk agents. They were all pitching in to do housekeeping for those 6 weeks. I mean, we didn't have one single housekeeper, but I mean, these are kind of the things that we were doing.
Right.
And, and I think it goes a long way. I think for any employee to see someone is going to give them a hand, they're never going to say that's not my job, because they understand that someone else is doing it when it's not their job.
Right.
So, I think it was a big change. It was very different to what needed to be done. And, you know, fortunately, we got through it. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that had to deal with that. But, you know, that's why I guess we're very appreciative of the employees that we had at that point.
Yeah. I mean, listen, anybody, the main focus, I should say, is, of course, been a lot on the job loss, and it should
Yeah.
be. But there's also a big focus on, or at least there should be, on the people that were still on, that were taking on so many responsibilities that they've either never done before or haven't done in a long time. And now they're doing 3 or 4 or 5 different roles at the same time, which can lead to very easily lead to burnout, right? I mean, you're working
Right.
all these crazy shifts, these crazy hours, doing all these different jobs, and it's
Yeah.
hard. It's very hard. And again, the same way there's been no end in sight from people that are unemployed standpoint, there's also been no end in sight for people that are doing these kinds of superhuman feats. And it's like, when is this going to end? Because I just don't know how much more I have. So, Ken,
Yeah.
you have all this going on, new location, new job, expanded responsibilities, still need to be a leader. When you go home at night, I have to imagine you're very just emotionally exhausted. I'm sure some days you're
Yeah.
angry, some days you're tired, some days you're happy, whatever the emotions are.
Hmm.
How do you go home at night and just rectify those emotions, to either try to push them aside for the day, just relax? How do you not take those emotions home? What was your routine, or what did you do to decompress when you got off the quote unquote job, even though it never actually ends?
Oh, I mean, I got buddies that own hedge funds and work on Wall Street. So I mean, we would do every night during COVID, we would do 8:30 at night, what we call our pre-market party instead of pre-game party.
Okay.
So that would be our next day pre-market party, and we would kind of do that all during COVID, and that would ease my, I guess, as a hobby of mine. I mean, I've been in the stock market for the last 9 years. Um, and I love the stock market. I feel that's my way of researching on what other companies are doing
Okay.
instead of me. Now I'm getting paid to research. So, and that's the way we kind of got through it. And I mean, my wife, I got her into it this past March because what when COVID hit, we started buying all these stocks. I mean, I was
Hmm.
buying Spirit at $7. I was buying crazy amount of stocks, at prices you would have never thought. And as my wife was seeing, she's like, "Oh man, look at this," and
Right.
that kind of it kind of helped all of us because I mean, when you're just stuck and you can't do anything, you need to take your mind off of work,
Yeah.
and you need to take your mind off of certain stressful things that are going on. And that's why people were having Zoom parties and people were having Zoom calls, and it wasn't really about work. It might have been everybody at work having a Zoom call, but it was more than work. It was like interacting with people and
Yeah.
knowing, how their families are doing and kind of what they're up to at home. When was the last time that we cared what our employees were doing at home? I mean,
Right.
we just never really got into that philosophy, but it helped us to know. And I would kind of reach out to my employees that I worked with in New York City and within our company back there, and kind of even my ownership up there too at the same time, and see how they were doing,
Right.
and how their market was doing, um, how the certain employees were doing. And I kind of, it felt like to me as when I got done with work, when I was going home, I wanted to reach out to other people that I've known throughout my career to see what they're up to, how things are going with them. So it stood out a lot to me to be more involved, where I wanted to kind of hear from people. I wanted to hear what's going on, and build a hobby just not based on. I mean, there was times that we couldn't go to restaurants. There was times that it was a complete lockdown where you couldn't go places.
Right.
So all you could do is talk to people, and do your Zoom calls or do your team calls, and kind of not worry about work, because I felt like when work was over and done with, now you had a lot more time to kind of do other things
Uh,
rather
there's
than.
there's two things I want to break down there, which I think is awesome. And you know, you talk about the stock market and how that's something that you just like to do.
Mhm.
It's kind of a hobby for you. And we've talked about this on past episodes, is finding that thing because it's tough, right? You're tough. People are sad, they're depressed, they're angry. And sometimes it can be difficult to get off of the couch, right? And if
Yeah.
you're someone that's going through that, that's okay.
Mhm.
Shouldn't think that that's wrong. But if you can find something outside of your typical routine, whether it be stock markets, for example, I'm doing something similar where I'm learning to trade foreign currencies and I'm
Yeah,
trying to get,
4x.
yeah, I'm doing forex trading. So I'm looking to
Yep.
get more involved with that.
Yeah.
So Ken, we may have to have a chat after this about that.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
getting more involved in that forex trading. And it's giving me something to do. It's giving me something to look forward to, something to get out of my comfort zone. But it's also more of a hobby versus,
Right.
routinely hitting that pavement, looking for job, looking for job, looking for job, and getting rejection, rejection, rejection.
Yeah.
But also keeping those, something else you mentioned, keeping those relationships established, keeping those interpersonal relationships, because again, we're all hotel people. A large majority of us, I should say
Yep.
hospitality people, a large majority of us are by nature
Mhm.
friendly people, people that want to deal with other people, stay involved, communication, things like that. We're not typically going to be just someone that wants to sit behind a desk all day, not talking to anybody.
Right.
So we lost all of that. And in one of our previous episodes, we talked about that, where it's very hard to lose that communication with the people that you see every day, the people that you've become family with. And
Mhm.
by you going out there and making those connections, by reaching out to people that maybe you haven't talked to in a while, people that you mentioned in your previous position, you're able to kind of keep those positive vibes going with yourself. At least that's what from my it sounds like to me, which helps you
Yeah.
kind of push through all the
Mhm.
negativity that you're facing on a day by day basis.
Yep.
And that unfortunately leads me to the next thing I want to talk about, because you also had some personal tragedy with COVID aside from the professional tragedy.
I did. Yeah.
That I'm sure there are people that have been in similar circumstances in the sense of losing a family member to COVID while losing your position to COVID and having just so much uncertainty. So you unfortunately, as you're going through all of this, lose two uncles essentially back to back. I think, as you said, it was within like 24 to 48 hours of each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
first, again, my condolences for that. I know I
I
expressed that to you when it
appreciate it.
happened, but certainly again.
Yes.
But how do you're fighting hard to stay positive and doing the things we just talked about, and then you just get these two uppercuts with your uncles. Where did that take you? What was your mindset then as all of this is kind of transpiring?
Um, it was very heartbreaking. I mean, um, so I came to this country basically at a very, very young age because of my dad's oldest brother. Um, and I would say I was probably like four. He's the one who brought us over here, and that was my dad's oldest brother. I was actually very tight with him too, and he was retired. He was living the nice retirement life. He did very well for himself, extremely well, and you know, um, it was very tough to deal with it. That it just everything just happened, bang, 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 and it wasn't like get on a flight, go, come back. It just happened,
Right.
and fortunate at that time, it was my dad's oldest brother with my dad's youngest brother, and they were together at the same time. So, um, and they both landed in the hospital the same day. Um, one passed away in 24 hours. One passed away, I think it was a Thursday, and the other one passed away the next day, Friday evening. And it was now my dad. The following day, I think it was the following day, he fell down the stairs and broke his arm after the second brother. So I think Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So, and I knew why that happened to my dad because obviously he was just shocked. I mean, everybody was shocked
Of course.
because I mean he was in great. His oldest brother was in great health. I mean, he was a ballroom dancer. He won awards in Boston for ballroom dancing, and he was just always in great shape, always in the gym. That's kind of where I get to be in the gym every day. That's why I'm in there like 2 hours because of my dad's oldest brother. I mean, he taught me at a very young age. So it was extremely tough, and I felt like what other people were going through. Because I mean, with all the negativity and all the news and about COVID's not real, don't wear masks. I mean, none of that stuff is. I mean, if people believe COVID's not real, why don't we ask about the 250,000 people that lost lives?
I have
You
to
know,
imagine that
so
infuriated you as this is all
yeah,
happening.
it got me really upset. It got me very mad to when people, are thinking that COVID's not real. And it's just this thing that is going to go away. It's not going to go away. And it's going to take a lot more to go away. And, you know, people that are dying or got COVID, it got me more serious. And it also got me thinking that um, for me to work and be around the industry where we don't have it controlled. I mean, there was points that I mean, yeah, that's great. We tell everybody to wear a mask when they walk into a hotel, but it's not. They're just wearing a mask in the lobby.
Right.
Um,
And
we're putting
just
our
for reference, when this all happened, this was back in, was it June, if I remember correctly?
yeah, yeah, about May, June, yep,
So
around that.
we're still really in the thick of things. We didn't kind of see that summer easing as we did kind of August, September. We're right in the middle. So all this is happening
Right.
as you're saying. So
hmm
continue.
Yeah, so it happened like right in the middle, and it's to you become very observant at that point. Is how do we make sure I don't bring it home because I have a 5-year old, and there were a lot of things that were going through my mind, where I felt like, I wanted to take a break and I couldn't. There was no way I could take a break because I was playing a GM role, that for so many years that I didn't do. Um, so I was playing a GM role, um, and I was wearing a lot of hats. And so it was a very stressful time, and I mean, any company I'm always at or whatever I do, I put blood and sweat into it. Um, I kind of phase whatever I might have going on at that time frame, and I kind of just go with the flow and make sure we're doing what we need to be doing. But it was probably the toughest moment of my life, um, to lose two people like that, and people that were very close. To know what my dad's probably going to go through, and there's a fear factor now in my dad, because my dad's also, he had pancreatic cancer about 4 years ago, so he's still in his recovery stage.
Right.
And he's doing well now, but you never know when it can come back. So
Of course.
you know, so there were a lot of things just happening, and when you have to deal with all that, and you still got to do your job, and um, kind of just figure out what you want to do at that point. And especially, you can't make it to the funeral. There's no funeral, so there's a Zoom video funeral at that point,
Right.
and you're not allowed to be with your closest family members, and you can't spend time with somebody or see their body for the last time or anything of that sort. I mean, I don't wish on anybody to go through something like that. I think it's the toughest thing ever to deal with it, um, for somebody of that age to not see their grandkids one last time. Um, and because he also loved my daughter a lot. So trying to explain to my daughter, where her uncle grand she always called him grandfather, grandpa. So I mean, I wish I could have taken some time and done some other things at that point, but I kind of put work first, and I was just trying to get my mind off of it. But it was definitely tough. It was definitely tough, and I mean, we had more things happen. I mean, I don't think I mentioned this to you, David, but I think was it 3 months, maybe 3.5 months ago, my mom lost her brother to COVID.
No, I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, so I mean, it's been a crazy, crazy year overall.
So how do you not break, Ken? I mean, you're bending before all this. You're bending because of everything else we talked about in the top of the show, and now just
Yeah.
bang, bang, devastation from a
Hmm.
from a personal level,
Yeah.
and you can't even take the time off, like you said, to kind of recover, which I think anybody would need.
Yeah.
How do you not break?
I mean, this goes. I guess I've got that Northeast mentality, and my friends, and one my best friend that owns a hedge fund, right off Wall Street. He's like, man, you're probably the only person I know that can never break apart. He's like, nothing, nothing just breaks you. It's like motivation. You've got like motivation written on you all day, and he's like, nothing will tear you apart. I'm like, no, nothing will. I mean, I've been through, I mean, the toughest times to the best of times, and I make things that are tough, I make them good, and kind of that's how I deal with it. Um,
So is that a mentality that you think you were just born with? Is that something, a skill that you work on routinely
I
to build that resilience?
I kind of look at things in a way where I'm like, okay, things are gonna break you and pull you apart, you'll never get over it. You got to make the best of that moment where it's like, okay, this is what exactly happened. How do we? You can never get past it. I mean, if somebody tells you I'm past it, they're not past it. But are you gonna let that hold you down? I mean, you got to be inspirational. Where okay, how can you give that person that's going through the same thing, and how can you make them more motivational? And how can you give them comfort? And it's I had to give comfort. I always say pass the comfort because you have to give comfort to someone else always. So I was making sure my father was okay. I was making sure my cousins were okay. Um, we have a very big family. And they're spread it out throughout the United States. Some of them are in the industry, like hospitality. Some of them are in the IT. Some of them are the doctor. I mean, some are working in the military. So, and the thing is, I have, I feel like, sometimes I have the military mentality where if you let anything break you down, then whatever that thing is just got the best of you
Mhm.
because you just let it run you over like a freight train that just came knocking you down on a railroad track. So I feel it's something that we can work on. It's something you're built with. But if we say that, oh yeah, if somebody took your job, are you gonna not ever work?
Right.
If somebody took your promotion, is that going to stop you? No. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be having whether being a VP of a position or being in the industry for this long, having all the people like yourself and other people that I know. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am if I was going to let things break me down.
Ken, that's a great mentality. I mean,
Yeah.
forget everything from your uncles and the tragedy in your family. People are getting broken down, rightfully so, based on
Yeah.
everything
Hmm.
going on with COVID and the industry. So to
Yep.
be able to continue to have that mentality on top of everything else that has taken place, I mean, you truly live that mentality. That's not something you're just saying because you're on a show. Like you truly
No.
live that. And again, we've been in communication, and I can truly say just from your stuff on LinkedIn and just being in contact with you that you do hold that positive mentality. I mean, the ability for you to come out and share so many positive things with everything going on is it's tremendous. And for people out there that are feeling like they're broken, it's not always easy. And I don't think anybody would begrudge you for feeling that way. But if you can just even try to fake it till you make it type of thing where you're just telling yourself it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. Here's what I can start to do to turn this around. Then maybe it snowballs into something better, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it
Oh yeah.
snowballs into that little extra level of, okay, I'm getting there. I'm actually getting there. And now you find yourself actually taking those steps that you
Hmm.
never thought maybe you could take. And Ken, that leads me to my next point with you. We talked
Yeah.
everything about everything that's happened. Then
Hmm.
you lose your position on top of all of this, which
Right.
again, another thing where it's like, okay, you're bending, you're bending, you're bending, you're bending, but you're just not
Hmm.
breaking. We talked right before we started filming this episode that you're looking into
Hmm.
taking in new opportunities and you're expanding your horizon potentially and trying to maybe redirect your career into a different way that maybe you wouldn't have done prior. So let's
Right.
talk about that. As all this is going on, as you
Yeah.
unfortunately have your position eliminated,
Hmm.
how do you go ahead and say, you know what? Okay, I'm actually going to go out and make a leap of faith and I'm going to bet on myself and have that confidence and that encouragement to say, even though everything is really around me is on fire, it's kind of that cartoon you see sometimes online where
Oh
the
yeah.
little dog is sitting in a bunch of fire and this is fine. I almost get
Uh-huh.
that kind of mindset with you that you have all this fire going on around you. You're like, this is fine. I'm going to make this work.
Yeah, yeah.
So what went into that mentality of, okay, yeah, I lost my job, but man, I'm about to do something possibly better.
Yeah, I mean, so the first call I got, I think it was 2 days after, my position was eliminated, and it kind of just, said this is probably not going to work out. Um, and my best friend calls me. He's like, man, I told you, working for someone was never going to be fun. And he's like, that's why I've got a multi-billion-dollar company because I want to do it myself. And he's like, I think it's time for you. And I'm like, time for what? I'm like, he's like, it's time to stop working for somebody. It's time to make stop making them money because you need to make money yourself. And you've went through a lot this year, and your dedication and your time and your effort is just going right from the left ear to the right ear.
Mm,
Where um, people are not valuing it. He's like, I know you're an asset, and a lot of people can't say that about certain people that they're an asset. And he always talks as the stock market because he thinks everything's stock market terminology. So um, he's and we talked about where we lined up as to how we probably formulate the company, and what we look at, what our asset dollar amounts would be. And he's already got his connection, so he's actually we kind of formed a company together. So he's the money guy, I'm the operation guy.
mm,
And we've got, I would say he has about 280 investors in his portfolio. And where we've started, basically we started the work, I would say, to try to gather everything together. um, we're gonna wait at the right time. I'm not in a rush. I mean, I haven't worked since September. I haven't applied really to too many places. I mean, I've had people call me, and I'm always willing to listen still. I'm not still 100% out that door, but also it's, I think it's also time, as in, I've said that I've done this for a lot of years on the development portion and on the operational portion. And
mm,
now the opportunity came. I've never asked anybody to invest into me. I've never told anybody invest into me. This was an opportunity, and it was almost 2 years in the making since I left New York City. And we've been talking about it for 2 years, and I just never wanted to kind of do it. I never wanted to go in that aspect. But I think, and I think this is the way that a lot of people might want to look at it, is, do you want to work for somebody when you're capable of doing it on your own? And those were the words I think Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Paul Allen said in that garage
mm.
when they built Microsoft, when they built Apple, and the other company that I can't think of. But you know, it's sometimes it comes at time, where it's like, how far can you go?
Right.
How much more can you do? And when does it come a time where when you know you're an asset, but you're not being taken as an asset,
Mm,
or it's not considered to be a valuable asset. Um, and I think that's where I think we are looking at. I think I was mentioned 8 to 10, but it's somewhere between 18 to 20 properties right now that we are looking at throughout the United States. And it could be even more. I mean, we're building our team. So right now it's a lot of work. I mean, David, and I've done it. I actually built the company that I was with for 8 years. We built it from ground up. Um, and that's a story for another day. But right now, they're they've got a lot of hotels. I built their management company from the ground up, and they are one of my. They are actually in the portfolio. They are actually one of the investors as well. So we've got a great team. We're building on to better things. We've got a great product that we're going to be putting into it. It's going to be a product where it's almost a very analytical product that's going to be part of our management company. And we are creating one of a kind management company where we're going to be 100% owned. We're only going to have our investor group, but we are also going to have um, a lot of different aspects to it that you don't see that other management companies have or other hotels have. So we're doing a lot of things differently. We do have, and we're capable of raising the bar, I should say,
Yeah.
because of the investors that we have. All of our investors that we have, their net worth is over $1 billion.
Wow.
So yes, so we are bringing a lot of backing behind it, and we feel like it's going to do really well. And we had the right plans to go forward with it. We do have a lot of items that we would look at from a standpoint, as you know, the New York City market is very real estate heavy driven.
Yep.
So, and right now, it's probably the best sales out there. I mean, probably come January, January, February, we're gonna have the best sales anywhere.
Yeah.
A lot of different capital companies that are gonna have a lot of hotel sales on them, but also, as our industry is changing, we want to develop a younger generation, right, of owners, as this is what we should be capable of. There should be a supply chain, as you know, it was American Hotel Registry that filed for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So, there's things that are changing right now, and we need to flow with it. We just can't go and say, oh, I want to go build a Hampton Inn today, or I want to go buy a Hampton Inn, or I want to go buy a Marriott and think it's going to be successful next year. That's it's not going to work like that anymore. It would have worked like that in 2019
Right.
and 2018. It's not going to work like that. You have to have different pieces to the puzzle now. And that's what we feel like we have. We have different pieces to the puzzle. I mean, I just can't go too much into it
Yeah,
because
of course, of course.
yeah, we're still lining up a lot of the things, I would say, but it's going to be a very interesting piece, and that's why we're having all the people lined up. We're having certain things that we're going to be doing, and we're gonna move forward. And probably in the first quarter of 2021, that's what we're looking at. And but I'm enjoying my time at home with my 5-year-old. It's been exceptional, and a lot of the people that we have. I mean, I should say, like I mentioned, the amount of investors that we have and their net worth, and they wouldn't think they've been doing a lot more and they're capable of doing a lot more, and they wouldn't go along with the plan if they didn't believe in it, you
Right.
know. Um,
And that stems
and
from, and that stems, sorry to interrupt you, Ken, but that stems from you, right? That
yeah,
stems from your
hmm
continued positivity. If
right,
you were
right,
coming in and saying, well, I had the worst year ever and nothing's looking good,
Yeah.
you're not gonna get that confidence from you to invest in you. You know,
No.
all, you've been developing that
Mhm.
quote unquote sales pitch for your entire life,
Yeah.
and now it paid
Exactly.
off, or it's paying off.
Yeah. And I would tell you is our whole team didn't know anything about what happened with me till we all signed on to be part of a team. Um, when I think one of the guys, he owns a big IT company out in Silicon Valley. It's like I don't, it's like $8 billion company, and he asked me, he's like, Ken, what, how did anything affect you this year? Or I'm like, no, not really. I mean, he's like, yeah, nothing ever affects you. You just always you're positive in life. And then my buddy told him, my best friend, he's like, yeah, he lost three family members to COVID. And he's like, I could never figure that out, that he lost anybody, or this happened. And that's kind of, I like to have that positive energy. I believe in the universe. Um, and I'm always happy. I'm happy with what I have. I don't want to be, I don't want to have a lot of money. I don't feel that money is not the way. I'm more of, if I could help somebody, that's what I want to do, you know, and being in this industry as an employee for 20 years and now going into it as an owner, I'm going to be able to direct the company, the employees, the vision in a
Right.
way that I don't think that there's an ownership group that can do it like what we're going to do, actually. You know,
And you talk about positive culture in a
yeah.
company, and it obviously it always starts from the top down. And
Mhm.
while you're still developing your company right now from the initial phases, if anybody has any question about the company culture that you're going to have and the positive
Yeah.
culture that you're going to have, I mean, just listen to the story over the last 50 minutes and how you're able to stay positive through that. I mean, I don't think there's much more that could happen that could then break you. I mean, I think you've shown that you can
Hmm.
get pushed to the nth extreme and still hold on. So there's no reason to doubt that whatever goes on from here on out for you and your company as you develop it and move into scale and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that you're going to be able to keep that positive mindset, and that's going to impact your team overall in an extremely positive way.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, the thing is, we're going to build some dynamics to it where there's a guarantee that we are going to be 98.5% profitable. We're going to have a service culture that's with our scores that are going to be in the 90s, and we are capable of building an analytic system uh, due to the drivers that we have. And we're going to bring on staff members where you're not even going to see, we're going to get the best of the best. We're going to be Google of the hotel industry. uh, we're going to want to hire the best. We're going to want to make sure we're going to not only concentrate on revenue as an ownership group, we're going to be looking at how well do we do with scores. And will there be a time frame where we start and say, okay, mm, we're going to want to start our own franchise?
Mm-hmm.
Just as if you saw the movie McDonald's, on how McDonald's started, what did they do? Or how did some of these other companies start, whether it's Apple, whether it's Microsoft? Right now, you look at the EV market. So if you, for instance, if you take the EV market that we currently have, now you might be driving a car called Candy, you might be driving a car called Nikola, Revan, Solo. Nobody's heard of any of these. But why do people like them right now? It's because it's something new.
Right.
And that's kind of where we're going towards.
And that, my friend, is where you come back onto my show and you tell us that success story and how
Yes.
all of that success has, in a way, directly and indirectly at the same time, happened due to COVID and due to the challenges that you faced over the last 8 to 11 months, and how that's really kind of spearheaded you in that direction, and how all that success is going to come back around. Because I think a lot of people are going to find themselves in a new place in 5 and 10 years where they're really happy with where they are. And you can look back and say, well, that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have to pivot because of COVID. If it wouldn't have happened if this didn't happen because of COVID. And it's going to actually turn this really negative time into a positive. So, Ken, we're coming up on time here. I really appreciate coming on it and being vulnerable enough to share your story with us. And I think a lot of people that hear this are going to be appreciative as well, because I'm not going to say people have had it worse, but I can't say that anybody is that much worse than you, because a lot of stuff has happened to you, both professionally and personally. And I really appreciate your time today from coming and sharing that with us.
Yeah, and I just gotta point this out is that I think everything happens for a reason. Everything, the groundwork that's laid in front of us, it's not a negative. Um, it's to make sure do not get comfortable. Don't get comfortable. Always have a vision, achieve your goals, and if there's a negative experience or even a negative event in your life, it's happening for a reason for you to be more motivated. It's to
So,
get motivated.
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So, Ken, thank you
Yes,
again. Anybody
I
out there
appreciate
listening,
it.
reach out to Ken on LinkedIn, get in contact with him. As he said, he's starting a new company. He's going to need some great people. So just get in contact with Ken, follow him. He's someone you want to know. So again, I'm going to pop his name up
Appreciate it,
here,
David.
but it's pretty straightforward. Ken Patel. Shouldn't be too hard to find him online. And Ken, obviously, will still be in contact, and I look forward to having you back on as a guest.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Wow. I mean, again, I told you at the top of the show this was going to be a great show, an emotional show. And, it was one, as Ken was kind of going through this, I was getting choked up. And, Ken is another great example of some of the network connections that I've been able to make through this time, through some of the things that I've been doing where, we didn't know each other prior to COVID. We got in contact through various channels due to COVID, and we just became friends during COVID. And to kind of see him go through all of this stuff, again, both professionally and personally, and see the positive attitude, he really does live that. He's not just saying that because he's on this show. He really lives it. It comes across, it just oozes out of him. So anybody out there going through difficult times, whether it be a similar story to Ken's, whether it be more, whether it be less, I mean, everyone has different opinions, everyone has different levels, and whatever you're going through is your own personal struggle that we are dealing with. And if you can just try to keep that positive mindset, take Ken's advice that you can only move forward, you can't move back. And no matter what happens, if you keep looking forward and keep driving forward, you will find success in some capacity, whatever that may be. It may not be opening up a management company. It may just be starting a podcast like I did. It may just be whatever. There's a million things open to you, and just trying to keep your heart and your mind and your eyes open to those things out there, you will find success. So again, thank you to Ken for joining us and being my guest. Thank you all for being my guest. We have another great episode coming up next week, so stay tuned for that. Again, like, subscribe, follow all the general stuff that we can do on the social media accounts now. Please share this as well if you find it to be interesting, because I think a lot of people out there can find some good resources and some good hope out of this. At least I hope so. So again, thank you for joining me. We'll be back next week.